Welcome to Season 3 of Off Script with Sam Monk, Senior Leader of Equippers Church. We're talking about what's worked, what hasn't, and leadership lessons from the journey. Enjoy today's podcast.
Hey, we're back. If this is your first time watching, welcome to Off Script. It's great to have Jake with me.
Thank you for the welcome.
We're continuing a conversation to a degree. I think we talked about sacred cows if you watched the previous episodes, but we're going to talk about sheep.
Yeah, we're continuing the animal theme.
Yeah, the animal theme.
Yeah, very relevant throughout the Bible.
It's going on. What's easier, sheep or cows? I don't know.
Well, we've got some good stories to tell you about that as well, actually. But I think sheep.
Sheep.
No, I'm kidding. No, I'm hoping people go, nah, it's cows.
It's cows.
It's definitely cows.
Cows. So deal with your sacred cows. But looking after sheep, it can be difficult.
It can be difficult.
And the Bible describes us as sheep.
Yep.
As sheep. So you're a sheep. And I believe the challenge is just in leadership. The story in Matthew 9, Jesus sees the crowd and he has compassion on the crowd because they are sheep without a shepherd. And then he says, the harvest is great. And I really believe we're living in a season where the harvest is great.
Yep.
Man, God's
totally
moving
agree.
In many different places. The harvest is great, but he says the laborers are few.
Yep.
And then he says, pray to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers. And so what we want to talk about today is how do we turn sheep into shepherds? How do we turn?
This is the $64 million question. If you can answer this, man, I think it can help a lot of people though.
Well, we're only as strong as our team.
Yep, exactly right.
And yes, we like being cared for, but somehow we've got to get people to a place where they're just not being cared for all the time, but they pass on what they have received and they start caring for others. And I think that's what Jesus was getting at here.
Well, it's a real maturity thing, isn't it? Though this is the turning the tide in terms of you maturing in your journey, recognizing that. And again, it touches on some of the last couple of episodes around we don't want to be consumer Christians who receive from.
Yeah.
So we love the benefits of being shepherded.
Yeah.
We just don't always want to be the shepherd because it's a little bit harder.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also the difference between wilderness versus promised land living.
Right.
In the wilderness, everything was provided for them. Shoes never wore out. Imagine that.
Yep.
Clothes, had it all provided for them. Food outside the door.
Yep.
But in the promised land, they had to go out and get.
Yep. Forage and fight. And, yep.
and fight for it. And just the whole thing is, there's got to come a transition between needing an answer to becoming an answer.
Yeah, that's good.
Because in a lot of places, many people live, and you even hear testimonies, and I'm not trying to belittle any testimony, but, I received this. But the Bible says it's more blessed to give than it is to receive. How often do you hear at testimony time, I gave away a car?
Exactly. Yeah.
I gave it, because that's going from needing an answer to actually becoming an answer. And I believe that transition needs to happen on so many levels within the church, especially if we're to fulfill our mandate.
Yep.
The harvest is great.
Yep.
And I'm praying that the workers would be many.
Many, exactly.
Many.
Yeah.
In different spaces.
And I think that scripture also talked, in the previous verse about the sheep were confused and helpless.
Yeah.
And I think we know there's a lot of confusion out there. In terms of the geopolitical scene, there's a ton of confusion for people.
Yeah.
That's not a hard one, but the sense of being helpless, like we know with God we're not helpless.
Yeah.
And so I guess the confused and helpless, but people need to be shepherded. And again, we'd reiterate that we all love that, but there has got to be a point in your journey where you're recognizing that I need to now be part of the solution, or I've recognized the challenge, and I've actually got. There's the point where, like, how do we get people to that point of recognizing that sheep to shepherd thing is actually a part of your journey?
Well, it's easy to go into a church, into a space, and point out what's missing.
Yeah, true.
It's like you don't need to be a rocket scientist or church consultant. You can see where things are missing, but it's another thing to become the answer to that problem. Mm-hmm. And I think in a lot of places we shouldn't point out something that we're not prepared to be the answer to.
It's good. Yeah.
It's like, people come in sometimes and they'll go, people are just not friendly. Well, it's like the question we've got to ask sometimes is, how friendly are we?
Yep.
To new people coming into an environment. We can be friends to our friends.
Yeah.
Which is easy.
Or the people that like us or that we know us. Or,
Well, Jesus said, if you just love those who love you, you're no different than a tax collector. Which was not a compliment.
Yeah. And I think it's like we'll often say, we don't want to be a thermometer just measuring the temperature, but we're a thermostat, eh? Like we get to set the temperature of the room as well. So it's not just pointing it out. It's like, hey, what do we then get to do? And I guess a lot of that's like, especially in church life, if it's home, I'm often saying to people, hey, if church is home, you wouldn't, someone knocks on the door, you wouldn't say, just let yourself in. You come in for dinner. Oh, did you bring any food? You would be you'd be doing those things because it's home.
Yeah. And
I think it's really important to probably recognize that if it's home, that you're part of this family now, and so we all get to do dishes and we all get to set the table.
Especially, when it comes to a local church, finding that place, and I believe, everybody should play a role in the church somewhere.
It's good for them.
Yeah, it's good. It's just like, no matter how busy you are at work, if you come home. And you go, I've been too busy at work. I'm not putting out the rubbish. I'm not doing the dishes. You'll have problems in your home.
It'll be stinky. Yep.
Yeah. You have problems in your home, relationally and stinky-wise as well. But just everybody needs a role to play in that. And I think, the issue in a lot of places is, you can hear even feedback sometimes, well, nobody cares or nobody cares. Well, the question is, do you care?
Yep.
And how are you caring for others? Because I found sometimes where I have need, if I become that to somebody else, it's a little bit, if I refresh others.
They themselves are refreshed,
I'll be refreshed myself. It's Proverbs 11 going on there. And, we just need to really encourage people as like, because a lot of people like being sheep. Mm-hmm. But shepherds,
it's easy. It's again goes back to our last couple of episodes. It's convenient being a sheep. It doesn't carry a lot of cost.
And let's face it, leadership in recent years has probably got a bit of a bad rap. And it's like, why would you want to be a leader?
Yep. Put yourself out there.
Put yourself open to attack. Open to being misread.
Yep. Misunderstood. Targeted.
Yeah.
It's a pretty vulnerable place at times, especially if you don't have a lot of covering or a lot of, it could be a pretty interesting place.
Yeah, and I found in some places it's coming that people are shying away from leadership, just shying away. But I want to create a culture where leadership is aspirational.
Yeah.
It's aspirational to actually go after, to become a shepherd, to reach other people, care for other people. And that's where we may need to redefine leadership in some people's minds, because I'm not talking about leadership from a hierarchical position.
Yeah, that's
I'm
true.
talking about leadership from a serving place coming underneath. But we do need leader shepherds, and that's a significant role if the body's going to grow.
Do you think that needs to be redefined though? Because I think you're absolutely right. I think leadership is it's in some ways it's a weirdly polarizing word. It's a great thing, but you're right, it can be misconstrued. Just like the word Christian, I'm a Christian, but are you a follower of Jesus is quite a different thing. Do you think again in our culture, leadership's been given a bad rap for sure, but how many times are we're exhorting people, even as pastors, ministers, leaders in our whatever places, we want people to be leaders because we know that leadership is influence, you're able to bring effective change when you step up and lead.
Yeah.
But I just think people, have misconstrued the word and it's now tainted with things. And
well, the Bible talks about, even when it comes to shepherd, there's good shepherds and bad shepherds.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be good leaders and bad leaders. But I like what one person said. I can't remember who said it, but the misuse of something doesn't justify no use.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
And just because it's been misused over here doesn't
because we've
mean,
seen bad leadership, it doesn't mean leadership's bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Not everybody's tarred with the same brush. And
you don't have to read much or listen to podcasts or whatever. Really, at every level, everyone's talking about the need for leadership in every sphere.
And there's going to be good and bad, but also there's good and bad sheep.
Yeah.
Because I know leadership take a rap, but Jesus said, be wary of wolves dressed in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, not shepherd's clothing, eh?
Not shepherd's clothing. Some of the greatest wolves that are out there are actually in sheep's clothing, and they're bringing division within a church.
Yeah.
And so many people are be wary of leaders. I'm going, well, sometimes we need to be wary of people who look like sheep who are actually wolves.
Yeah.
And in fact, that was one of the biggest things, Acts 20, I think it's around there, where, wolves will come in among you and they'll draw people to themselves.
Yeah, right.
And sadly, in many places, there's a lot of people in church, but it's all about them. It's all about, it's all about drawing people to them rather than actually to
Pointing
Jesus.
people to Jesus, yeah. Yeah. And I think, and that's a real challenge, I think, that because it's at the heart of that, Jesus talks a lot about unity. In fact, it was probably one of his most important things he left the early church with, was, be in one accord. And I think that the wolves really help to create disunity, don't they? They come in and they,
Well, it's... just drawing to self and sowing doubt, sowing suspicion.
Confusion, yeah.
One thing I've said is I can't operate in an environment of suspicion.
Yeah.
So if you got a question, ask.
Yeah, ask it, yeah.
Ask it. Don't go talk about it with a whole lot of other people.
Yeah.
Because even just sitting on a suspicion and verbalizing it to other people is gossip, it sows discord.
Mm.
And in a lot of places, people sort of just overlook that. It's one of those sins that you overlook, but it has big effects.
Because it can, and I guess this is where the enemy can bring confusion, thinking, no, you're actually really helping by actually talking about it, but talking to the wrong people really helps to sow discord, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And again, Matthew 18 would tell us, hey, if you've got a problem with the person, go to the person.
Yeah.
So it's really clear what the Bible says about it, but so often we can make... we can come up with our own ideas rather than, no, let's look to the Bible, to tell us the process and the way to actually navigate these issues that we're facing.
Yeah, and one thing is you can't stop people talking.
No,
people
can't.
talk. Oh, no, you just need to stop talking. But we need to teach people there's right places to talk
that's really good.
and there's wrong places to talk.
And the challenge is there's a lot of, there's a lot of narratives outside of church going on. And I think we don't want to have those in the church where, because sometimes the tendency can be, maybe just don't talk or don't share. But then you're kind of creating a vacuum where someone's going to fill it with something anyway, aren't they?
Yeah.
If you say nothing, someone's going to say something.
Yeah, definitely.
If you try and hide something, I think even relationally, I don't know, you often see the situation where a guy and girl start to hang out. We just don't want to tell anyone. People will find out, man.
They find out really quickly.
So just it's best to say,
we're hanging out. The Christian network worldwide
that's right.
is big.
We all know each other. Yeah. But I think that Discord thing is a real challenge for us as a church.
Yeah, even Paul would go on and say, mark somebody who's divisive. So it's like, actually mark them out.
Yeah.
This person is a divisive person. And I think, nobody likes leading a team where there's disunity.
Yeah. And
it's like, if we were leading the team, would we want ourselves on team?
Yeah. Yeah, would we be part of the team that we're leading? Yeah.
Because I really believe, church should be teams within teams. Problem in a lot of places is we see leadership through the mental construct of our organizational chart.
Mm-hmm. We have over the years. We keep trying to do it. It doesn't work.
We do org charts and different things, but the best way I can describe it, and maybe it doesn't do it justice, but is church should be teams within teams.
Yeah.
I lead a team, but I'm part of a team. I'm part of a team. I'm a team on a team as well. And, but we create these levels, even people around church, you're not at my level. I'm going, what's up with that?
You're not at my level. Gosh.
It's just like...
Someone punch me in the face if I ever say that, eh?
Yeah. It's just like, where does that come from? And I know there should be honor and there should be respect. I'm not talking about not honoring one another and not having respect, but when you have to power up, that's...
What's the verse? Was it in 1 Peter? Don't lord it over
people.
Yeah. It's
by your example.
Yep.
Be example, and when the chief shepherd appears.
True.
And I think that's a big thing, is just by living example. And Jesus came as a servant leader within that, and to serve really means to remove the power differential.
Yep.
It's to come. He could have powered up. And Philippians 2 gives us a real good narrative around that. He had all the rights of heaven.
That's right.
He dismissed them, and he became like you and I.
Mm-hmm.
And because he humbled himself, God exalted him.
Yep.
But that whole thing is he removed the power differential, so he became relatable. Too many leaders aren't relatable, and even Pope Francis says the problem in a lot of places is our shepherds don't smell like our sheep.
Wow. Yeah.
And I believe the challenge of leadership is to get among it.
And what's the thought you often use? If you're a leader, you've got to operate hierarchically. You've probably lost relationship.
Yeah.
Like if you have to go, well, I'm the boss here.
Yeah.
Like if you've got to say that, hey, I'm the pastor.
Yeah.
Then you've probably lost the relationship in the process. You shouldn't have to appeal to your position to build any sense of authority, because it doesn't come from your title.
Or to drive something through.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, and it comes from your ability to serve people, which ultimately is what a shepherd is there to do, is to lead the sheep. And I still love that analogy that we often use, that, we're often as leaders simply opening gates and saying, hey, there's green pasture over here. Like there's, you could be fed here. And you're often opening and closing gates for people, aren't you? And saying, hey, come over here. This is going to be the best thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we do that. And that was the example of Jesus. I was thinking of Matthew 20, Jesus came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. So it's what Jesus modeled. Like, let's never get too far away from the example of Jesus.
Yeah. And I like that the thought is leading people to green pastures.
Yeah.
How do we lead people to green pastures? Are people benefiting from our leadership and how we're leading them? It's not for me, it's for the lift in everybody's life.
Yeah.
And I think that's the heart of a shepherd.
Yeah.
Is it sees that they're helpless, and he had compassion upon them.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to look at our society right now and just go, God, we need more leaders.
Oh, man.
If you can't see the helplessness out there and you're not prepared to be an answer, I'm going like, slap yourself.
It's
like you're not prepared to get involved in leadership because it's too inconvenient. It's too, it's like, man, we've got to we need as many people as possible putting themselves out there. And here's the thought is, when you become a shepherd, you actually become more like Jesus.
Yep.
Because he's the good shepherd.
Yep.
He's a good shepherd, and so let's not stay as sheep. My prayer, in fact, one of my biggest prayers I often pray for is, God, I need more leaders. God, I just need more leaders. And so often we see a problem. Just to let you know, just for those out there, if this is helpful. Some of my mental processing is, when I often see a problem, I don't go, how am I going to fix the problem? I go, who?
Yep. It's true, you do.
Who can help? Because there's only so many problems I can fix. I'll tap out very quickly.
Yeah.
But it's who. Because I thought about it, when God saw a problem on earth, he always... Like Moses was an answer to the Israelites' captivity.
Yep.
And it's who? And so when you see a problem, I think the question we've got to start asking in a lot of places, if we're going to release a lot more shepherds, is who?
And I think practically, how often are we just getting whiteboards out? Hey, names, come on, names. Let's talk about names. Who could we have conversations with? Because it doesn't. The tension will always be, I don't have leaders, and then. Sometimes I'm asking guys, in the last week, of all the hours that you've had, have you done anything within that time frame to actually talk to someone about leadership? Or because the problems keep stay there and they only get bigger.
Yeah.
And you're right what you said. If it comes, the tension will be then if it comes down to us, we're only one person. Jesus was only one person.
Yeah.
He could only do so much, and so we know these things, and yet we can get caught up in the busyness of doing the thing.
Yeah.
And forget that actually in 10 years' time, we're going to have no one if we haven't, had a conversation today.
Yeah.
It's a real danger.
Well, it's a big area that we need to put a lot of weight on and investment in. It's all good you spending a lot of time fixing problems, but you're going to tap out.
You're going to tap out.
You're going to tap out at some point in time. But when it comes to releasing leaders, if we were asking who, investing in the who, time, well, then the potential is limitless in terms of what can be accomplished. So this is a good subject, how to turn a sheep into a shepherd. And I pray you pray what Jesus told us to pray. Pray to the Lord of the harvest that he will send out laborers, because the harvest is great. And we're believing that the workers are going to be many in Jesus' name. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to Off Script with Sam Monk. If you found this podcast helpful, make sure you pass it on. We love your feedback, so drop us a line about what topics you'd like to hear about on Off Script with Sam Monk.